morning to everyone. We're just here for a few minutes. We are Christians from different churches, not the same church. We teach about Christ and the Bible and God's Word, the Creator. There's only one. And I want to share some good truths with you today. We're only here for a few minutes as you pass by with your busy lives. I want to cover this. I put on the board here what Christ did on the cross is pure love. He is unchanging, omniscient, personal, and infinite, just like his Father. They are the same. Jesus says, you see me, you see the Father. So he's the same as the Father. And I want to cover some things with you on omnipresent. How God can float around, be in this creation. And I just want to mention to you, God relates to space in a far different way than we do or than any created thing does. A pantheist believer believes that everything is God, or that God is everything that exists. So if we saw a pigeon fly down on the floor here, a pantheist would say that is God. Or if we saw a dog run across here, a pantheist would say that is God. But that is contrary to what God says. I repeat this today, that the Bible perspective is rather that God is present everywhere in his creation, but also distinct from his creation. So I'm going to give you an example. This is not a perfect example, but I'm going to give you an example of how God is in his creation. If you come here. And here what we've got, my brother here, Naresh, he's got a sponge and he's got water. He's going to hold it up and he's going to pour that water into the sponge. Here's an example. So he's drenching that sponge with water. It is not a perfect example, but it is helpful to understand how God is everywhere. So here you have a sponge full of water. And that water is spreading throughout that sponge. Water is present everywhere in the sponge, but the water is still completely distinct from the sponge. That is a sponge, and there's water in it. That's how God is in this world. He's got his... Sorry, sir? Under his feet. Yeah. So that's an example, sir, of how God is everywhere. Anyhow, that's an example of where God is. Most of the time that the Bible talks about God's presence, it is referring to God's presence to bless his creation. But God is present in different ways, in different places. You read that in the Bible if you read it, if you take time. There is a terrifying passage in the book of Amos in the Bible where Israel was showing their sin and rebellion against God. Vividly portrays this presence of God in judgment. I'm going to read it to you. Though they dig into hell, from there my hand shall take them. Though they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down. And though they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, Mount Carmel that would be, from there I will search and take them. Though they hide from my sight at the bottom of the sea, from there I will command the serpent, and it shall bite them. Though they go into captivity before their enemies, from there I shall command the sword, and it shall slay them. I will set my eyes on them for harm, and not for good. That's God speaking, not me speaking. He's speaking to Israel, back in the book of Amos. Now he is like a husband and father to Israel, but there he was carrying out and saying that he would punish them for what they were doing. So let me ask you, what side of God do you think you are on in your life? Which side of God are you on? Let me ask you some questions. I'm not judging you. I'm not your judge. I'm the same as you. Which side of God are you on? Let me ask you, just like Israel, how many lies have you told in your life? 10, 20, 30, 40? Too many you can't remember? What do we call someone who tells lies? We call them a liar. Have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you? Even if my brother says, yeah, me too. When I was a schoolboy, secondary school, I used to steal sweets from a shop. I was a thief stealing sweets as a schoolboy from the shop. Have you ever taken anything that didn't belong to you, even a pencil from school? What do we call people that takes things from other people? We call them a thief. Jesus uses the term about himself as the Son of Man, which is the most popular term he uses, because he knows us and created us. And he says if we lust after another from inside, hello sir, keep well. If we lust after another, we have committed adultery there in our hearts. That's what he says. Let me give you another moral law. I'll just give you a couple here. Which side of God are you on? I'm asking you. I am not your judge. But let's say you're doing some DIY at home. You've got a hammer and nail, you missed a nail, you hit your thumb. I've done it tons of times, and you end up with a black thumb. What happens? Out comes that curse word. Now let me ask you, would you use your mother's name as a curse word? No, because you respect and love your mother. But what do? When that happens, we're doing DIY, we've whacked our thumb, out comes a curse word, and who do we curse? We curse the very Creator who gave us our mother, and we rub his name in the dirt. JC this, JC that. You hear it every day. JC this. That's the only name, if you go do your research, in history that is cursed 24/7. Ask yourself why. So I come back to that question. I've covered a couple of things there about lying, stealing, lusting, and cursing. Just a couple. Which side of God do you stand on? In Matthew, the book of Matthew, the New Testament, they were witnesses, and Luke, they were witnesses. It says and talks about the two thieves on the cross, one on the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side. And it says, one of those thieves was mocking Jesus, and it says, if you are the Christ, save yourself and us. But the other, answering, rebuked him. The other thief on the cross, this one, rebuked him, saying, do you not even fear God? Seeing you are under the same condemnation, and we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man, talking of Jesus, has done nothing wrong. Then he said to Jesus, Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, assuredly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Which side of God are you on right now today, on this Friday, in your life? Which side are you on? Let me ask you again, what side of God are you on? You and I are just like those two thieves on the right and on the left. One was on the wrong side, and he was separated from God. The other was on the right side. So thank you for listening. I'll leave that with you. My neighbors in this town, to consider these things about your soul. Thank you.